Okay, so since we were asked, it's Dak and Clear here on installing Bazzite. So we're going to do a couple different things here. First of all, we're going to need partitioner and of course Bazzite itself. So that's Bazzite, BAZZITE.gg. Scroll on down, click download Bazzite. It's going to ask you which one you want. Of course, we're going to select Legion Go. And then in this one, we're going to do like SteamOS. And we're going to let that download. We're going to need two other different programs. One being Magic Partitioner Resizer. Just do a quick Google search. It's the first one on the top. So we're going to need to download this as well, which is free to Windows. And then typically a lot of the reviews out there show to use Etcher. So we are going to use Etcher, but as one of the people in the Facebook group I'm in, they only have a micro SD card. So this can be done all via the touchscreen. I'm, for video purposes, is using our lovely keyboard and mouse, but as we get into the later stages of this, I will utilize just a touchscreen just to show that it can be done. So here we go, Balena Etcher. Now, if Balena Etcher doesn't work, we can also use Ventoy, which also is a fairly decent program for doing this. So we'll download Etcher. I will naturally, I could put the links in the video, but I'll definitely be doing that later on for you guys, just so you have them, save you a little bit of headache. Download. And as we get everything installed, we'll move on to the second part. So just as a quick first part, let's get the micro SD card here that we have in our slot all set up with the Bazzite that we downloaded from the website there. Select target. We're going to see a large drive, which is fine. As you can see, micro SD card does work. We'll hit select and flash. And it's going to say, are you sure? Which is perfectly fine. So yes, I'm sure. This will take between 5 to 10 minutes to fully complete, and then we'll move on to the next stage. Just as I said that, of course, it failed and no longer likes the SD card slot. So we are going to take this a different way and I kind of figured that this might be the case, so we're going to go ahead and download Ventoy, which is definitely another option, probably one of the better ones out there actually, in comparison. So quickly download that, which should only take us a moment, and then once we have that installed, we'll install it directly to the SD card, so it's a little bit different in that aspect, and then we'll drop the ISO in for that. There are some other starting steps, which I'll get to in a little bit here, which should help you throughout the whole process of doing this. definitely settings that you have to go into the BIOS for. So we'll go into further depths on that here. Let's quickly install Ventoy to disk, which we're going to run. Apparently nothing was really truly liking me here, including Ventoy. So we're trying to do this with Vilhena Etcher once again. Seems to be the case for me. This time, of course, it's moving a lot faster, so and it wasn't coming up with errors, which was the biggest issue in the previous time. So I'm glad to see that it's working this time. Normally I would be doing this with a USB stick, which these ones should work considering they didn't work for the other video, but in this scenario they would work, or have had them work, to be honest with you. So in this time we're using the SD card as a part of the video process for one of my lovely friends on the Legion group community on Facebook there. So come check us out. There are a lot of helpful tips and tricks from different people. But as this is flashing, which we can see this is going pretty quick because the SD card is a faster SD card. It's a Samsung Evo, 128 gigs. So typically this takes about 5 minutes. In this case, it's only taken a few minutes. All right, now that we're done that, we are going to go into IM partition, and we are going to partition our hard drive. And so we have space for Bazzite. So here we're seeing the 929 gigabytes. We're going to select resize, and don't need a lot of space as I'm going to be utilizing very little windows here, mainly just for, we'll give it about 256 gigs and leave the rest for Bazzite, as that will be our main There we go. That should be close enough. That leaves us about 671 gigs for our other program there. Now it's going to allocate that. It's going to say apply changes, which we're going to say. We're going to click on OK, and then yes to restart. Once you're done the restart here, it's going to bring you to a different part here. On the background where it will show you the processing of it and making sure that the partitioning went through. This typically only takes a moment. This is probably one of the longest parts of the whole part. As you can see, it goes to 100%. For me, it gave me a blue screen. Seems to be a common occurrence that I've seen on my case not always, but just in this scenario. Now that we're logged back in, I'll show you that this actually did work, because that's always a concern. Especially if it blue screens on you. It's always a massive concern. There we go. Now we see that lovely unallocated section there. And now we will go into rebooting here. So what you're going to do is just select restart. As it's restarting, hold the volume up button. Once it goes to a black screen, we are going to hold the volume up button, which should bring us to our BIOS. So what we're going to do is we're going to select BIOS setup. We're going to select more settings. From there, we are going to go into settings or security. Make sure secure boot is disabled. And just for ease, change your select thermal policy to stamp. And just a suggestion from a lot of other people in the group, let's find it here. The UMA frame buffer size works. A lot of people suggest 6 gigs or auto. I just leave it in auto, which seems to do the trick for most games. Now we're going to select exit and save settings. Once it's rebooting, we are going to once again hold down the volume up button. And then from there, we are going to select boot menu. Typically, you'll see the SD card. In this case, I am not seeing it, which is a little nerve-wracking. So we are gonna try and insert that again. Typically this will work, but every once in a blue moon, we do get a error where it's not showing. Now, in the worst case scenario where it doesn't work, I strongly recommend using one of these lovely guys there, as it will trick Lenovo into thinking that there is a USB stick there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold down the power button. We're going to try and get this to go again, because we don't need the Windows Boot Manager. So we'll power it back on and we'll give this another shot. If it doesn't work, then we're gonna be stuck going with the other route. My Legion goes kind of finicky in that aspect, which I'm not sure is a good thing or a very, very bad thing. Holding volume up, boot menu, and once again it's not showing up. I do find SD card can be a little finicky on here, so we'll try this a different way. The unit itself is getting a little toasty, so we'll plug the USB into the bottom here. And now, of course, it shows up. It's going to bring up this. We're going to select the first option. This is where the keyboard does come in handy. It is a little bit more, but you can use the arrows key. You want to use arrow up and then A for select. It's going to open this part here. You always want that top option, or else this won't work and it'll just continue to fail. That seems to cause a lot of people a lot of headache in this process. Once we're past this part, then it becomes a little bit more simple. So here we are, Bazzite. We're just gonna English, United States, so pick the language of your choice. Select. Now, you can do network. You do not need it. You do not need to set up Wi-Fi here. In my case, Wi-Fi, there's like 18 million different Wi-Fi hotspots in the area. So I end up not being able to find mine. User creation, if you don't want to change this, you don't have to. The default password for these is going to be Bazzite, like lowercase, all lowercase, so super easy. The biggest area that you are going to need to do is the installation destination. So we're going to select that, and we're going to go advanced, and then click done. It's going to open up this part here. Now we're going to see the huge free space that we have right here. This is what we want. So first of all, we're going to select this portion, the add button here. We're going to go EFI partition, mount point is going to be /boot /EFI, and we're going to change this to MIB and change it to 300 megabytes. Like I said, if you want, we are going to try and do this via touchscreen. And you can do it the touchscreen. It is a little bit. You can just use the scroller there and bring it as close. We'll bring it down to 50, and then of course, then you can kind of take it up to 300 from there. Since I want to show that you can do this via the touchscreen without the keyboard and mouse. If you're a megabyte or two over, that might be okay, but we're going to leave it at 300 even. Now the keyboard, well, apparently you do need the keyboard, so that is going to be a little bit of a headache for you. I do apologize. For the most part, you can get away for most of it without, but if you have a wireless keyboard sitting around, I strongly recommend utilizing that. Select OK. Then we're going to go back to our free space again. We're going to select add new device. Now we're going to leave this here as ext4. We're going to type in /boot. And then we're going to leave this as GIB and change the size to 1.0 and click OK. So we're going to go back here. We're going to select free space once again, click the add button, and we're going to change this to BTRFS. We're going to leave everything else the same. No need to change that. Click OK. It's going to create a file over here called BTRS volumes. We're going to select plus. For mount point, we're going to do one that's just slash, then OK. Then we're going to select plus again. We're going to type in /var, VAR, OK. And then once again, /var, /home. So VAR /HOME, OK. And then from there, we're going to select Done, Accept Changes, or Cancel and Return. Of course, we're going to select Accept Changes. And then we're going to select Begin Installation. This should take a few minutes to do. Since we're doing this through the SD card, it shouldn't be too fast or too slow compared to the USB sticks that I'd been using before. But let's return here in a moment. So once again, as you're going through the whole process here, you are going to need a keyboard. The SD card does, I've had it work off of here in the past. In this case, Windows or the Legion Go just didn't like it for whatever reason. That doesn't typically happen, but from every now and then it does seem to happen, or at least with my unit. It may vary, but once this is installed, I'll restart the video up and we'll do the final touches here. Just, you will need a keyboard for strictly part of the Bazzite part, which I wasn't quite expecting. I thought you'd be able to do it virtual keyboard, but apparently that is not the case. I will say that it is definitely faster via USB stick on a 16 gig USB stick. I've noticed that it's fairly slow with the SD card. So yes, can you do it? Yes, but should you do it? Probably try and find a USB adapter if you can, or a USB-C to USB adapter at the very least, as it is a little slow. But, and that's, mind you, that's through this. Whereas if it does end up working, which through the SD card reader, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit faster, but, or it should be fairly comparable to the USB 3, but in this case, this adapter is really not the quickest. I will say that my video here is a little bit shorter because I keep on hitting the pause button. Now it's going to ask us to reboot the system here, which we will do. It's going to start reloading. And then we should see Bazzite open up here in a moment. Hopefully, fairly soon. Mind you, you guys did get to watch me go through a bunch of errors that I seem to have run into, which is probably a good thing. Etcher didn't work for me, and then Veltoid didn't want to work, and then Etcher decided that it was going to finally work for me. Doesn't always seem to be the case, doesn't always work like that, but in this case, that's kind of the way that it went. Here we go. Legion, continue to boot. Bazzite. That's going to be the first boot screen that you see as we go into Bazzite. Going forward, you will no longer get that. You'll get a bunch of different things here. Of course, now it's going to update the cards. So let's give that a moment here while it does that. This is typically why you'd want Wi-Fi, but realistically, it'll just flow through perfectly fine because you have the latest already. And then, of course, we'll log into our Steam app. Now, this is pretty much the screen that you're going to see every time that you boot up going forward, and then it'll automatically go over to Legion with Bazzite at the bottom. going to verify our installation. Select all of your stuff. Now in this case, we are going to select. So for whatever reason, and this is something that's not mentioned in the other videos, if you do have Wi-Fi 6E like I do, apparently SteamOS does not like allowing the password to be entered. So I'm going to type in my case, the Wi-Fi here. Whoops. This is always the first part of this whole experience, that I just do this quickly. Of course, I do quickly change a few of the other things here. So now that we're, like I said, this is why I don't set it up directly through the Bazzite process, because there's hundreds of Wi-Fi and it doesn't allow me to select enter in my password. So from here, well, of course, naturally we'll sign into our SteamOS account. And there we have it. Now that we're all signed in, we'll quickly tap through all this. One of the few things that I like to do is, of course, it's going to ask you to apply a bunch of. So we'll quickly do that and then we'll move on to the next part here, which seems to confuse a lot of people. All right, on to the next part here. We'll go into settings and then display. Now this is just a personal preference. I like to, of course, keep my, but scroll down and this will allow you to change this. I don't like my screen turning off. So if you like to mess with those settings, then it's a lot easier. You can use native color, temperature, pretty much anything and everything that you can expect out of a Steam Deck is there. Of course, you have all your settings in here as well, including your power. It does show that I'm charging, which is good. And scaling, I just set it to FSR. If you hold down the other button here, apparently it didn't like what I was about to try and do. So as you hold down the button, it's going to pull up this, which is a Bazzite exclusive part. And then you can change it to your custom performance balance quiet mode. And of course, TDP boost and set full speed for the fan. You can also change your solid. And we can go, what I like to do is I go full screen mode, which is you can either press Y or do it like I did. We can go into RGB and we can change the RGB to what we like. In my case, I prefer orange. And we are going to increase the brightness. You don't need to, but it's something that is good to know. And then, yeah, get on to installing the games that you want and have fun, enjoy. And I look forward to seeing you guys all in the next video.